What if I told you? The reason you're not wealthy has nothing to do with your job, the economy, or luck, but with a hidden part of your mind you've never met. The morning rush in Manhattan was relentless. Yellow cabs honked. Wall Street traders hurried into glass towers, and coffee shops buzzed with chatter. But for Ethan Cole, a 34-year-old marketing coordinator, the city's energy only made him feel more trapped. His rent notice lay crumpled in his pocket. His checking account balance read $247.19, and his credit card was maxed out. Sitting alone in a small Soho cafe, he nursed a $4.50 black coffee he couldn't really afford. At the next table, two sharply dressed businessmen discussed shifting your money mindset and something called Carl Jung's shadow work. Ethan only caught fragments. Subconscious beliefs, money blocks, integrating the shadow. But it was enough to spark an uncomfortable curiosity. What did psychology have to do with money? That night, unable to sleep, Ethan sat on his bed scrolling through his phone. His search bar read, Carl Jung Wealth Psychology. He found article after article explaining Jung's idea that our unconscious mind drives most of our decisions, especially around money. One line stuck out. We don't attract what we want, we attract what we believe we deserve. Ethan thought about his own habits, never asking for a raise, avoiding networking events, turning down freelance work. It wasn't laziness. Deep down, maybe he truly believed he wasn't worthy of more. As he read further, a memory surfaced so vividly it made his chest tighten. 7-year-old Ethan, sitting at the kitchen table of a small house in rural Ohio, watching his father open the mail. His father muttered, "Money doesn't grow on trees, son. People like us just get by. That's life." Ethan didn't argue. He absorbed it like gospel. And here he was, nearly 3 decades later, still living by that invisible script. Jung called this the shadow, the hidden part of ourselves that shapes our reality until we face it. The next morning, fueled by a mix of desperation and curiosity, Ethan booked a session with Dr. Laura Hayes, a Jungian psychologist with a cozy office in Brooklyn Heights. Bookshelves lined the walls, sunlight spilled through the window, and a faint smell of sandalwood hung in the air. "I want to understand why money feels so impossible," Ethan admitted. Dr. Hayes leaned forward. "Because your conscious mind says you want it, but your unconscious mind believes it's dangerous or unattainable. Until you reconcile the two, you'll keep sabotaging yourself." Dr. Hayes handed Ethan a blank sheet of paper. "Write every negative belief you've ever held about money." He hesitated, then began. "Money is stressful. Rich people are greedy. I'm not smart enough to be wealthy. If I have more, someone else will have less." As he wrote, Dr. Hayes asked, "Where did each belief come from?" Slowly, Ethan traced them back to his father's comments, his mother's constant worry over bills, even offhand jokes from teachers. None of them were his own, yet they had controlled his financial life. Halfway through the exercise, Ethan's voice broke. "I've been living on autopilot, thinking hard work alone was the answer. But I've been working against myself this whole time." Dr. Hayes explained Jung's metaphor. "Your mind is like a house. The rooms you live in, that's your conscious mind. But there's a basement full of furniture you've never looked at. Some of it's useful, some of it's rotting. Money problems often hide down there. Until you open the door, the basement controls the whole house." That night, Ethan started a ritual Dr. Hayes had recommended. He sat in silence, closed his eyes, and visualized receiving a $10,000 check in the mail. He imagined opening the envelope, feeling calm, grateful, and certain it was his. The subconscious doesn't know the difference between imagination and reality, Dr. Hayes had said. It will begin creating opportunities that match the emotions you feed it. Ethan felt silly at first, but something in him, the part that was tired of barely surviving, pushed him to keep going. A week later, Ethan was in a team meeting when his boss mentioned a new campaign that needed a project lead. Normally, Ethan would shrink back, but this time, he remembered the $10,000 visualization. He raised his hand. "I'd like to take that on," he said, his voice steady. His boss gave him a long look, then nodded. Walking back to his desk, Ethan felt a strange rush, as if the universe had just winked at him. That evening, Ethan walked along the Hudson River. The sunset turned the water gold, and the city skyline shimmered. For the first time in years, he didn't feel like the world was against him. He thought of Jung's words, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." Ethan realized this wasn't just about money. It was about who he believed himself to be. And for the first time, he felt ready to rewrite the script. 2 days into leading the new marketing campaign, Ethan felt the weight. Late nights, endless emails, and a team looking to him for direction. It was unlike anything he'd handled before. The old voice in his head whispered, "You're not ready for this. You'll mess it up." But he remembered Dr. Hayes' advice. When your shadow speaks, don't push it away. Talk to it. Ethan took a deep breath at his desk and silently replied to that inner voice, "I see you, but I'm not you anymore." The pressure didn't vanish, but it no longer controlled him. One Friday afternoon, Ethan's phone buzzed. It was a college friend, Rachel, now running a small startup in Boston. "We need a marketing consultant for a product launch. Someone I can trust. Can you help?" Ethan almost said no. He had the campaign, the stress. But then remembered the $10,000 visualization. What if this was the opportunity? He agreed, scheduling weekend work. The extra income wouldn't solve all his problems, but it was a sign. His mindset shift was attracting chances he would have ignored before. At a grocery store in Brooklyn, Ethan caught himself comparing prices obsessively, putting items back to save $1. It was an old scarcity habit. He stopped mid-aisle and laughed quietly. "I have 2 new clients this month. Why am I acting like I'm still broke?" The cashier, noticing his pause, smiled and said, "Sometimes you just have to trust money will come back." It felt like the universe sending him a small reminder through a stranger. The campaign Ethan was leading had a crucial pitch to a major client, a deal worth over $500,000 to the company. The conference room was tense. As the client asked tough questions, Ethan spoke with clarity, tying every answer back to value and vision. When the meeting ended, his boss patted his shoulder. "That was impressive. You just made us a lot of money." Ethan felt the irony. He was helping the company earn big, but now he knew he could create that for himself too. Dr. Hayes encouraged Ethan to visit his hometown in Ohio for a weekend. Sitting in the same kitchen where his father once spoke those limiting words, Ethan realized something powerful. His father wasn't wrong out of malice. He was just repeating his own inherited beliefs. That night, Ethan wrote a letter he'd never send. "Dad, I release your fears. They're not mine anymore." It was the psychological closure he didn't know he needed. 2 weeks later, Rachel's startup wired him $4,800 for his consulting work. As he stared at the payment confirmation, Ethan felt something shift. This wasn't a lottery win or lucky break. It was earned, aligned with his skills, and accepted without guilt. That night, during his visualization ritual, he replaced the $10,000 check with a mental image of $50,000, feeling it as already his. A month into the campaign, Ethan's boss called him into her office. The client was thrilled. "We're promoting you to senior marketing manager, $18,000 raise, plus performance bonuses." Ethan almost laughed out loud. Weeks ago, he was scared to even ask for a raise. Now it was handed to him. But deep down, he knew this wasn't random. His subconscious was finally aligned with abundance. Ethan began sharing what he'd learned with close friends. Over coffee in Tribeca, he told his friend Daniel, "It's not just working hard. It's cleaning out the basement of your mind, the shadow stuff. If you believe you're unworthy, no amount of hustle will fix that. But once you believe you deserve it, opportunities find you." Daniel listened intently, and for the first time, Ethan felt like more than a success story. He was a guide. On a crisp autumn morning, Ethan walked again by the Hudson River, the same spot where he once decided to change. This time he had savings in the bank, work he loved, and a calm confidence about the future. The skyline shimmered in the distance as he whispered to himself, "Wealth isn't something you chase, it's something you allow." Carl Jung's words echoed in his mind. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Ethan smiled. Fate was no longer in charge. He was. Love learning how your mind shapes your life. Hit subscribe for more powerful psychology stories and like this video if today's lesson opened your eyes. Together, let's rewire the way we think, live, and succeed.